nationalities in the house, and there were 4 languages. There was Italian, English, French, and Flemish. The official language of the house was French. Father Peter spoke all 4 languages, but the problem was he spoke them all at the same time. I thought at that time it was my first introduction to speaking in tongues. It also reminds me of the time when an Irish brother, true story, came to a prayer meeting at St. Damatilla's when I was there. In his thick Irish brogue, he got up to give a testimony. Everybody thought he was speaking in tongues. I, being Irish, was able to understand him, and they thought I had the gift of interpretation. Father Peter was with us for a year, 1961 to 1962. He was already ordained 20 years at the time. No, I'm sorry, I'm in the order for 30 years. He was ordained May 17th, as you know, 1941. He had a number of assignments, as you saw, from Wisconsin, Chicago, Ireland, and Rome. And it was mostly in connection with the formation of students. He became general consultor to Father Montana from 1953 to 1961. Peter, before he went to Italy, went to his barber to get a haircut. And he told the barber he was going to Italy, and he was going to go on Alitalia. He was going to stay at the Hotel, the Ritz Hotel in Rome, and he was going to get an occasion to speak with the Pope. The barber says to him, you know, Alitalia is one of the worst airlines in the world. The Ritz Hotel in Rome, terrible, and you'll never get a chance to speak to the Pope. So Father Rookey goes to Rome, comes back to see the barber, and he says to the barber, you were really wrong. Alitalia flight was wonderful. The hotel service was great. And I got to speak to the Pope. And the barber said, what did the Pope say to you? He said, where did you get that lousy haircut? Father Peter, after his Louvain experience, he went to Germany and he learned another language. Then he spent almost 20 years in the Ozarks, where he had to learn another language.
Right now.
That's why I believe Father Peter speaks fluently in tongues. He has spent the last 30 years in Chicago area with the Compassion Ministry and is well known throughout the world, from Chicago to Dublin, to Rome, to Medjugorje. One time, he appeared on the balcony in St. Peter's with Pope Benedict, and people looked up and said, who is that man in white with Father Peter?
That's a good one.
There are many other stories that I can tell about Father Peter, but it's just for an intimate group. It is a milestone, Father Peter, to reach 95 years of age.
Almost.
But it is miraculous to celebrate 70 years of priestly ordination. Let's give Father Peter a round of applause. You're making me jump this. Peter, sit down. Father Peter, we wish you many more years of healthy and fruitful ministry. Who knows, Father Peter could be the first to celebrate a century of priestly ministry. Congratulations. Now that I have finished my little tribute, I'm going to say the joyful mysteries of the Rosary.
Good night.
And there'll be a meditation between every Hail Mary. I am done for today. Except I would like, it's a privilege also, to introduce Father John Fontana and Father David Simonetti. Father Fontana will speak first and give a tribute to Father Peter. Thank you for listening today. I'll be back in a few minutes. God bless
The worst position that a Servite can possibly have is to follow Paul Cullen, the MC of MCs of the province. Well, I've got to say that when Father Peter was ordained, my parents hadn't even met yet. And yet I've learned a few things along the way growing up as a Servite. I can't count how many times when I've traveled all around the country and even various parts of the world, when I tell somebody that I'm a Servite, the next question out of so many of their mouths is, do you know Father Rookey? I said, oh yeah, I know him. I know his sense of humor. I know his spontaneity and never know what's going to happen when. But I also know his prayerfulness, his love of Mary, of Nazareth, and know of his good heart. It's impossible to capture 70 years of priestly ministry and even more than that of religious life. But really, when all is said and done, what's most important, I believe, isn't the list of positions held, the accomplishments, in Peter's case, even the books written about him and the different media coverage he's gotten. What's always more important and more difficult to express because it's so personal is how one person has touched another person's life. And we don't have enough time for everybody to come to the microphone, but I would imagine everybody in this room has been telling some stories of how that has happened in your lives. And I'm sure that we'll continue to tell stories as the day and the weeks and the months go on. I can remind you of things that Father Paul already mentioned, that Father Peter was a pioneer in a new foundation in Ireland, that he was one of the leaders of the order as a general counselor in Rome, a ministry that he loved so much, that he's known some famous people, and he's lived all over the place, even in the far reaches of Arcadia Valley, Missouri. But we can only imagine in each of those places and with each of those responsibilities how many individual people in each place have heard the words, have felt the compassion, have received the blessing, and been struck especially by the good example of this good man over 70 years of life and ministry. Servites aren't really called to be famous. We're called to serve. And so on behalf of the Servite community, I need to proclaim that Father Peter, whether or not he's famous, has been a servant. He leaves daily and has all his life from a Servite home, goes out and stands at the foot of the cross of so many different people in pain. And then he comes home to the Servite community, which he loves. Even though at times he has become one of the crosses with those with whom he lives. Because he's human. And we Servites, his religious brothers, love him and are proud to have had him among our fraternity for all these many years, and to still have him, as he just said. I think I'm at the wrong funeral, but it isn't that time yet. My father's 90 years old, and he said to me when I talked to him this morning, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to celebrate Peter Rookey's 70th anniversary and 95th birthday, and my 90-year-old dad said, wow. I remember some years ago, Peter and I used to, I don't know if you remember this, Peter, we used to play tennis at Chapters a long time ago, and although Father Peter is 35,